Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. We're going to start out, we got a couple of Breitbart articles we're going to use today. I normally mix and match, but they had two articles that just jumped out at me. The first one is a poll that was recently done. The poll was actually done by Politico, but Breitbart was commenting on it. 79% of Trump voters think the election was stolen. 79% of people who voted for Donald Trump think the election was stolen. And we'll get into that. And then General Mad Dog Mattis, he's becoming more mad by the moment. He says in a recent article that Biden, of course, he's referring to the fact that he believes Biden is going to be president. Biden must drop America First policy. And we'll expand upon that. But before we go any further, I have to mention our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, BDU. We're broadcast live every day, Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time across all kind of Facebook channels, including America's Voice News. Good morning, howdy, how are you guys? Citizens for Trump, and of course, John Martin Talks and several others. We also broadcast every day live on our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks, spell it all the way out. But we're here from Big Daddy Unlimited Studios, BDI, in Gainesville, Florida. They sponsor our show. And, as I tell you all the time, not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can be in the fight. And Big Daddy Unlimited, the way to find them, no matter when or where you're watching our show, go above the video and you'll scroll down. You'll see description of our show. You'll see a link to our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, your Second Amendment headquarters. That's right. Anything to do with Second Amendment, from guns and ammo to swag to tactical gear, literally thousands of items shipped directly to your door at factory direct pricing. Check it out, and they are literally becoming your headquarters, not only for Second Amendment items, but your Second Amendment rights in general. And we'll expand upon that as the days and weeks come. Check it out. All right, we're getting on with this Breitbart story. Poll: 79% of Trump voters believe election was stolen through illegal voting and fraud. 79%. Politico conducted its 2020 voter priority survey, and results show that a vast majority of Trump voters believe the election results are not valid and that illegal voting and fraud took place during the election. Now, you may have seen stories out that the Trump administration has opened up and authorized a transition to begin between the potentially incoming Biden administration and Trump administration, which is usual and customary whenever a person loses an election or they are the incumbent and they can't run again after they've had two terms. Now, neither of those apply to Donald Trump. So understand this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just telling you the facts. You can deal with it as you want. Donald Trump is still fighting. He's still fighting this. And he does have some pathways to get reelected, to claim what I believe is rightfully his. Because put me into 79%, and hey, I believe it's higher, we'll talk about that in a moment, that believe this election was stolen. Can we actually prove it? Can the Trump administration and his attorneys actually prove it? That's the only thing that really remains in question. And can they get this proof before a judge in time to do something about it? Those are just realities that we have to deal with. Cheaters do sometimes win. They have in the past, and they are at the moment. Now, does that mean that Donald Trump should give up or concede? No, I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I think he's handling it about right, and I hold out hope and prayer, just like many of you do, that Donald Trump in the end will prevail. But he has given permission for his administration to begin a transition process with Mr. Biden. That's just the facts. The two aren't in, you may say, oh, well, they're like opposite each other. No, they're not. You can pursue every avenue while still at the same time caring about the nation, which I believe Donald Trump has proven without a shadow of doubt he does. And I think he realizes that he has an uphill battle. And so he is going to do what is right no matter what. And that's kind of where I see where he is now. Back to this article. 21% of Trump voters believe the results are valid, and 79% believe the election was stolen. Well, I want to know, who the heck is the 21% of the people? Do you believe that? Now, the 79%, I think, sure, I believe at least 80% of Trump supporters believe the election was stolen. I actually think it's probably 100%. But who are these 21%ers? Let me just put a little challenge out there. Chime in on Facebook, on YouTube, America's Voice News. Like I say, we're on there every morning. We're also streamed on their late night version on their streaming service, John Martin Talks. Check it out. You get all things. You're looking for an alternative to Fox and CNN and everything else. America's Voice News is a good choice. They're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. You get free Android app and iPhone. Check it out. They're also on channel 219 Dish Network and the Pluto streaming channel, and more to come. And we are rebroadcast there as a late night show, so check it out. But I want to know who this 21% is. So chime in on wherever you're at on Facebook. This is my challenge. Facebook, you can hit me up on YouTube. I'd appreciate it. John Martin Talks. Check it out. Also, now we're on Parler. We're still working on our hashtag there, so bear with us on that. We're on Parler. We're on Twitter. I have a Twitter account. Mine is at John Martin Talks, and my psychic sidekick here is at Billy Bob Bass 1. We're on MeWeave. All of those are just developing, and we're going to get on multiple other platforms, as you will see. So hit me up. Here's your question. If you are part of the 21% of Trump supporters that don't believe the election was stolen, please tell me why you believe that, because I think the polls already are wrong again, but that's just my opinion, an opinionated fact nonetheless. But here are some highlights, if you want to call them that, from the poll. 83% of Trump voters believe the media is the enemy of the people. Once again, who's the 17% that don't believe that? That statistic nearly flips for Biden voters, with 72% believing that the media plays an important role in our democracy. Well, I believe they played an important role, all right. There's no question that the media played a major role in this 2020 election. Matter of fact, they may have played the biggest role, especially if you put social media in that. But Biden is sold out to China, right? He is totally sold out to China. There's no doubt about it. His family is a crime family, and the media, in their vital role, you know, one thing about media, you can play a major role not only in what you report, but especially in this case in what you choose not to report. And the media basically gave a blackout and a free hand to Biden, and the payouts to Hunter Biden and everything else, they didn't even cover it. In fact, if you remember, leading up to the election, if you tried to talk about it on social media, you were banned and blocked from it. I mean, it's just crazy. I want to play you two videos that they're actually separate parts of a same incident that happened when Joe Biden was at an ice cream stand with his granddaughter. The first one, I think back to back, these show you the problem. They basically sum up the media's view towards Biden and Biden's view towards the media. Check it out.
We got everybody milkshakes, didn't we?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We got everybody?
Yes, they're in the car, sir.
All right.
We got them. See, look.
Mr. Biden, what flavor did you get?
We got one vanilla, one chocolate, but I wanted to get what we call black and white, but we're going to move it. In other words, we're going to split it.
And one more question.
That's it. And you hear at the end of it, first of all, they ask him a tough question, right? What flavor of ice cream do you get? Do you remember the press went ballistic several years ago when it came out that Donald Trump actually got 2 scoops of ice cream at the White House, while many of the guests only got 1? And that was like a major story, man. I mean, it led the press for like a week. about ice cream in Trump and some kind of scandal. But here you have a chance, a very rare chance, to ask Joe Biden a question, and you ask him what flavor of ice cream does he want or did he get? And then you may hear at the very end of that, the reporter says, one more question, Mr. Biden. We're going to play you that one more question in just a moment. But keep in mind that Joe Biden gets an ice cream question in the one opportunity you have to question him. Now listen to this follow-up question that you heard at the tail end of the previous video, and you will hear Biden's reaction to it. And the media basically just gives him a pass. Check it out.
I have one more question. The FBI is reporting.
One more question, Mr. Biden. What about the FBI? I mean, for God's sakes, man, the FBI, the CIA, the deep state, the Democrats, Republicans given permission as well. They spent like $40 million investigating Donald Trump from the outshoot of his presidency over absolutely nothing. Remember, Mueller came out and said there was no Russian collusion by any American, and they still investigated, and they still said that Donald Trump wasn't legitimate president. They question it to this very day. And Republicans are to blame as well. I want to give credit where credit is due. Remember when Donald Trump first became president, the Republicans had the House, the Senate, the White House, and pretty much the Supreme Court at the same time. And what did the Republicans do? Nada, not squat. In fact, you remember Paul Ryan, who is on the board of directors, I believe now, of Fox News. That kind of tells you where they're going or where they've been going for a while now. An alternative is to watch shows like John Martin Talks on places like America's Voice News and an expanding network that we got some exciting news to break here in the next couple of days about where we're going with the show. So check that out. I'll just keep you in a little bit of suspense. But they kept, you know why the Republicans allowed that deal to go forward? The whole investigation, why they didn't push up back on it, while Paul Ryan and his crew, of course, Jeff Sessions was the attorney general at the time. You know why they didn't push back harder? Because they believed that Donald Trump was going to be knocked out of the White House within the first year of his presidency. And so they sat back and let it happen. That's just my opinion, but I believe it's an opinion based on fact. But think about that second video we played. They asked him a question about the FBI. Didn't even get to finish, and he was and ran. Can you imagine Donald Trump doing that? I mean, Biden refused. First of all, he didn't even campaign. He didn't put himself in a position to answer any questions. And when he got one or two halfway tough questions, like about the Supreme Court or this FBI, he laughed them off and literally looked in the camera and said, "I'm not going to answer that." And there was no follow-up on it. And a lot of people, it's come out now, it's on separate polling, that a lot of Democrats said they never heard, and I believe them, said they never heard about the Hunter Biden deal until after the election. After the election. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who's a diehard Trump supporter was talking to a lady in a checkout aisle the other day, and she commented on his Trump hat that he was still wearing. And she said she voted for Biden and she regretted it. And she told him flat out, unsolicited, that if she'd have known about the Hunter Biden deal, she never would have voted for Joe Biden. So yes, the press plays an enormous role. Back to this polling. 81% of Republican voters have less respect for Democrats than they did 4 years ago. 77% of Democrats feel the same way. Well, let me tell you, there's a reason that is. You keep hearing all this about, oh, it's time to unify. We have to unify. Well, you know, the reason why we can't unify, and I refuse to unify right now, not that I don't want to have a unified country, but what are we going to unify behind? There's nothing to unify behind. The Constitution is on fire right now, and it's burning even more with this election fraud and everything, and the callousness which way our leaders are taking it, including Republicans, by the way, callousness, I say, the Constitution is on fire right now. And without the Constitution, there's nothing to unify. I mean, let me just give you one example of the extremists of the left and here where they want us to unify. Let me ask you, whether you are a Trump supporter or not, but certainly, let's say the 21% of those people that say that the election of Trump supporters that are okay with the election, are you part of the Democrats that believe we should unify? Are we supposed to unify behind something like this? Play this video.
By a Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure and explain her answer?
Yeah, and I wasn't there, Julie, and I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you, first thing I would say, this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion.
That's good enough.
But again, we want...
Blown out of proportion. So get this. So the baby, that is Ralph Northam, by the way, the current governor of the great state of Virginia. So the baby's born. We make it comfortable, resuscitated if it's not born alive. We're talking about an abortion at the very end of pregnancy, born alive. We make the baby comfortable, and then we have a discussion of whether it's off with his head or her head, off with their head. I mean, so are we supposed to unify behind that? Because that is a core belief of the progressives that have taken over the Democratic Party. I'm not saying that every Democrat supports that. In fact, I would say a huge chunk of Democrats don't, even those that support abortion in general, don't support that. But make no mistake about it, your leaders celebrate that. You remember the video, we're not going to play it, but the video of Cuomo, the governor of New York at the time when they signed a similar bill in New York. They partied like it was 1999. They were cheering about the ability to kill a baby even after it's born. Literally celebrating. Are we supposed to unify behind that? I can't do it. I'm sorry. I cannot unify behind that. Now, I'm not saying that we all have to agree on every issue. But let me tell you, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room if the baby's out wiggling and you want to go, whack! I just don't see how we can unify behind that. I'm just speaking for myself. But I think there's millions of others that probably feel just like me. Should we keep the Electoral College? Back to these talking points in the poll. Should we keep the Electoral College or use the popular vote to elect presidents? 61% of Republicans said yes. Again, I want to know where the 39% of Republicans are. Chime in once again on Facebook or YouTube. Spell it out. John Martin Talks, MeWe, Parler, Twitter, all these places. And let me know if you're part of that 39%, according to this poll, that believes we should do away with the Electoral College if you're a Republican or a Trump supporter. I'd like to know where you're coming from. And 32% of Democrats said no, that they don't want to do away with the Electoral College. Let me just tell you, if the Electoral College is done away with, we will become Hunger Games. We'll have city states, and the rest of us will be out in the hinterland providing for their comfort. But here's the thing about the Electoral College, and I'm 100% in favor of keeping it. But let's face the reality. And I'm not a cynical person by nature. I'm not a pessimist by nature. But it won't make any difference. These are my words. It won't make any difference if we allow the cheat by mail to continue. Stacey Abrams has come out now in Georgia and said that she's got over 700,000 requests for not absentee ballots, but mail-in ballots in Georgia for the upcoming Senate runoff. I mean, even though the majority of Americans have come out now and said they want the Republicans to maintain control of the Senate, well, perhaps you should have voted differently. But the mail-in ballots, ladies and gentlemen, as long as we have these cheat by mail ballots going out, the Electoral College, I hate to say it because I'm for it, will be irrelevant because they will continue to win. Here's the thing. You know, there's an old saying about eagles don't flock when they talk about why, sometimes the Democrats all join together even when they have disparate views. Because keep in mind, I hadn't said this in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. The strategy of the Democratic Party is to get various groups all pissed off. Gay people, black people. I'm not trying to compare one. All these different groups pissed off. Get them all riled up and then give them a common boogeyman like the Republican Party pushing grandma over the cliff. In this case, Donald Trump. He was a great boogeyman for them, the orange man. And that's what they unify behind. So they piss you off. Then they get you unified behind a common boogeyman. Republicans don't work too well that way. And a good friend of mine said, well, one of the things, we're either going to have to change this system, which I agree with, clean it up, the voting system, or we're going to have to learn to cheat better than they do. And we talked about it, and he agreed with me. That sounds good. But the reality is, if you're a Trump supporter, you're not very likely to cheat. I mean, how many Trump supporters do you think, and I know this happened for a fact, because I talked to them, and you chimed in on it, that Trump, people who were Republicans or even Democrats who were Trump supporters, and obviously there were millions that were, got multiple mail-in ballots sent to them. People who had never lived there, people who were dead, people who, once lived there, they got multiple ones. I've never heard a single one of them say, yeah, I took advantage of it and filled them out, or I handed them down the line to somebody else. You hear multiple stories of that on the progressive side. They brag about it even. So this idea that Republicans and our Trump supporters need to learn to cheat better, I get his point, but I don't see it happening because it's hard. You got to live with yourself. And if you have a conscience based on, for instance, your belief in God and the U.S. Constitution and founding principles, that word principles, I don't see how you do that. I know I couldn't do it. Let me just put it this way. In Florida, we didn't get those type of things. But if I'd have been living somewhere like, say, Michigan, and I'd have got 4 or 5 ballots, there's no way in the world I could have filled them out and lived with myself. I love Donald Trump. I want him to win, but not like that. I just couldn't do it. And I just can't believe that there are many Trump supporters, the ones I know, I just don't see any of them that would actually do that. So we got to clean up the system. If we don't, we might as well just give up. Because Electoral College will be irrelevant if we keep doing the cheat by mail. It won't matter. 1/4, back to the story here, this poll. In case you're just tuning in, this is a poll that said that 79% of Republicans basically see this election as a fraud. 1/4 of Democrats think that Biden should serve only one term, or 28%. That's a very interesting thing, that a quarter of people who probably voted for Biden expect him or don't want him to serve more than one term. I'm wondering if he's going to serve even one term, because I think a lot of this stuff, and I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but a lot of this stuff about the 25th Amendment that Pelosi and her crew brought up very late in the election is actually aimed at Joe Biden. And then they want to get rid of him. And, of course, his health, and I don't wish this on him, but he might not make it up the steps to inauguration. But, okay, let me just say this. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump's not going to be our president. That's not what I'm saying. But just in case something happens, God help us, Joe Biden actually gets inaugurated, then I want to beat Nancy Pelosi to the gun on Trump what they did on Trump. And let's say impeach Biden right now. Let's start the impeachment process on Joe Biden now, before he ever even gets sworn in. And we'll go ahead and impeach old Kamala, couch cushion Kamala, where's my Willie gal, along with him. Both Trump and Pence, back to this article, separately are frontrunners for the 2024 GOP nomination. Independents are looking at broader range, this is what the polling is saying, of GOP candidates, including Ted Cruz and Nikki Haley. All right, let's talk about that. Trump 2024, just in case. First of all, we're not quite ready to go there. Secondly, if Donald Trump, and I've been saying this and I mean it with all my heart, Donald Trump has every right to call it a day if he wants to. Whether he's reelected, whether he falls short, when his time comes to leave the White House, he has every right to basically say, I did my best. I love America, but I've had it and I'm going home and spend the remaining years, whether they be 20, 30, however many, with my grandchildren, my business, my family, and I'm just going to enjoy life, and I wish you all the best. He has every right to do that. If anybody has earned the right to ride off in the sunset and enjoy life, it is Donald J. Trump. No question about it. I don't think he's going to do that. I'm not sure exactly what he's going to do. Obviously, he's going to fight this thing out and hopefully win and be inaugurated to a second term come the 21st, the 20th, 21st of January. Donald Trump will be your president again, Snowflake. You'll be melting. Yeah, I'm hoping and praying that's true. But no matter what, Donald Trump does have the right, as I say, to ride off into the sunset. I don't expect him to do that. He's going to be a major figure for a long time to come. And keep this in mind, the media aren't going to let him rest. Of course, people like Maxine Mad Waters has said, we got to continue to investigate Trump. And you hear Biden the other day said, I might pardon Trump. But pardon him for what? He's committed no crimes. You guys have spent 4 years and millions of dollars and tons of wasted time investigating Donald Trump. And all you really have come up with is that the hooker owes him money, that the stripper owes him money, not the other way around. That the affair and all didn't have. I'll think about that. All the investigation of Donald Trump, and the only real solid thing they got is that Stormy Daniels actually owes him $300,000 for her bogus charges against him. I mean, you talk about a player, Donald Trump, man. He's the man. When the stripper owes you money, you are in a very small class by yourself, man. But Donald Trump, the media is going to miss him. They're going to go after him. They're going after Trump supporters, for God's sakes, and people who work for Trump. They're going to go after him. So they're not going to let him rest. Plus, they got to sell newspapers. And let me tell you, Joe Biden ain't selling no newspaper. He may be selling some party favors, but he ain't going to be selling a bunch of newspapers. And as far as who might actually run in 2024, of course, it's Donald Trump's for the taking. I don't think anyone could argue that if he does not prevail in his challenge. I don't think anyone could argue he would be the automatic front runner and would certainly win, in my opinion, the nomination for the Republican Party. He might be able to win the Democratic nomination if he wanted to. Who knows? Independent even. But like I say, we've got a ways to go. Let's talk about some potential people for 2024, because one way or another, we're going to have some candidates. Pence jumps out, no doubt about it. Pence is no Trump, and that's not a knock on him because nobody is Trump. But Pence would be a solid person for the MAGA agenda. Of course, you got to throw up, not out, Trump's kids' names, especially Don Jr. We'll see. I don't know. It would be a very interesting. The only problem that I think Don Jr. is going to have is his father overshadowing him, not intentionally. But if Donald Trump, it's one thing if Donald Trump gets his second term, which he deserves, and then he's followed by his son either in 2024 or later. That's totally different than Trump, the election being stolen from him and his son running. That would be a different scenario. I'm not saying it wouldn't. As far as Ted Cruz, I still support Ted quite often. I did not like how he ended the 26 campaign. I'll just say that. But I think Ted Cruz is a very capable person. I'd be surprised if Ted actually runs again. I think he's kind of in his comfort zone right now, and I don't think he'll do it. Nikki Haley, I have very mixed emotions about her. I'm up on one side, down on another. I'm not 100% sold on her. You know who I really want? If it's not Trump, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I'm just saying. Anyway, we'll see how it all shakes out. Let's keep going. All right, we got another story here from Breitbart, and this is about General James Mattis. You know, Mad Dog Mattis. And he is really sucking up the Kool-Aid and sucking up to Biden big time. This is a Breitbart story. James Mattis, Joe Biden must eliminate America first from U.S. foreign policy. So what are we going to do? America second or somewhere down the line? Whatever happened to the term commander-in-chief? Because Donald Trump clearly was the commander-in-chief. I remember when I went to a rally of Donald Trump's in Fort Myers in 2018 election when he was campaigning for senators and House members for the 2018 midterm elections. And I'd been to a few rallies during election year. This was the first one I'd been to during his actual presidency. And when I got through with it, I was covering it actually for several different media outlets. But we had a team of ours, and we got back in the motorhome, and they asked me, well, what'd you think? And I said, well, I got to tell you, I think Donald Trump just became commander-in-chief. I know he was already president, but the way he was then, between when I'd seen him before live and then, he had assumed the role of commander-in-chief, period, and leader of the free world. There's the terms we hear. Commander-in-chief, leader of the free world. Donald Trump had assumed both of those mantles probably before, but it just really resonated with me that night, seeing him in person. But you got to think about it. Obama never wanted to be the leader of the free world. He wanted to be a voice in a chorus. What did he famously say? Lead from behind. You know, we're going to lead from behind. I guess that's what Mattis is talking about here. We're going to go back to the Obama days of leading from behind, that Biden is that he wants us to put America somewhere other than first. And I think that'll have tragic events for our nation and the world, and I'm going to expand on them right now. Former Secretary of Defense James Mattis declared in an article in Foreign Affairs on Monday that the American First foreign policy had damaged national security. Had damaged national security, and called on Joe Biden to eliminate America First from U.S. strategy. So you have a highly decorated general, a guy who was the Secretary of Defense under President Trump, saying that we should eliminate America First as our objective. It's hard for me to imagine someone actually saying that. But hey, they say it all the time. Let me just tell you, I guess what he's trying to say here, and I feel a rant coming on. I guess what Mattis is trying to say here is that Donald Trump's foreign policy was an abject, total failure, right? That's what he seems to be saying. But let me just bring up a couple of little points, Mr. Mattis. And I know some of these you're opposed to. And let me just, before I go any further in this article, it does me no joy to criticize, to hammer on a highly decorated war veteran that served this nation, as far as I can tell, admirably in General Mattis. I have total respect, utmost respect for our troops pretty much at every level. But this guy is part of the deep state, and he's the one yapping, and so I'm not going to hold back. I'm just going to tell you as I say. So he's basically saying that Donald Trump's foreign policy of putting America first is essentially a failure and a threat to the nation. He goes even a step further. So let me ask you, General Mattis, what about the fact that this is the first president and Donald Trump in decades not to get us in a new conflict during his presidency? The first in decades. Even Ronald Reagan can't say that, right? But I guess that's one of the reasons why you're pissed off. Because without the war machine, then maybe you're not getting paid enough. I don't know. So no new wars is a bad thing, I guess. How about these peace agreements? Donald Trump got 2 peace agreements in the span of a few months, let alone a few years, in the Middle East, where they basically told you it could not be done. It couldn't be done. Those days of getting peace agreements between Israel and Arab and Muslim nations is over. It can't happen without Israel totally capitulating. Well, not only is Israel stronger than ever under Donald Trump's presidency, but they have entered into 2 peace agreements, and more are on the way. I don't know if they'll be squelched. Apparently, they probably will be by a Biden administration. God help us. So peace agreements, they're bad for business, aren't they? If your business is the military-industrial complex like Mattis. Donald Trump eliminated ISIS, something you couldn't do when you were in charge earlier on under Obama and all that kind of stuff. You couldn't do. Donald Trump got it done. Now, maybe you played a big role in it, Mr. Mattis, because you were following orders, but obviously you think that's a bad thing. I think it's pretty good, and a lot of people who lost loved ones over there think the same way. Donald Trump isolated Iran. Everybody acknowledges Iran is the biggest threat in that area, that peace in the Middle East can't happen with Iran being a superpower over there. But yet, Biden has already said he's going to get back into the bed with the Iranians, right? I mean, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, really, man, I tell you. But isolated Iran. Donald Trump did that. Confronted China for the first time in basically forever. Actually put China back on his heels. Now we know that Biden, of course, he's in the pocket of China. They got deals to make. You talk about the art of the deal. Well, I mean, when it comes to dealing with China, Trump can't hold a candle to Joe Biden, because I guarantee you Biden got his. He's putting a hand out to China, but it ain't like this. It's like this. Show me the money. Donald Trump got NATO to actually pay its bills, to actually live up to the agreement that they signed. But of course, in Mr. Mattis's world, that's a bad thing. How many times has Donald Trump been nominated now for the Nobel Prize? Now, I know he's not going to get it. They're never going to give it to him. But the fact that he's been nominated 3 or 4 times now for the Nobel Prize says something. Of course, Obama got it for waking up and having a cup of coffee, right? What? Can somebody please tell me, if you're an Obama supporter, tell me what Obama did to deserve the Nobel Prize. I'm still waiting. Even he laughed about it. Think about that. But Donald Trump actually deserves it. He's not going to get it, but he deserves it. Mattis, back to this story. Check my time. Doing all right. Mattis resigned in December 2018, citing policy disagreements with the president, who had just ordered a troop withdrawal in Syria. There's your big disagreement. So Donald Trump moves, 50 soldiers? Not even out of Syria, just out of there. And the Republicans as well went ballistic. They can't stand it. Because the one thing that the Democrats and Republicans and the Mattises of the world have in common is they love the swamp. They love it. They absolutely love it. They bathe in it. They love it because it's filled with, underneath all that murky green. You know what else is there? Green, bing-a-ling, ching-a-ling money. They love the money. They like it raining on them all the time. And they feel like Donald Trump was just about to cut off their piggy bank. And that's another, by the way, I hadn't said this, but I want to get it out while I'm on it. There's a reason why the left under the Democratic establishment would not allow Bernie Sanders to become president. Because Bernie Sanders is a flip side, and I know some people aren't going to like this, but hear me out. Bernie Sanders is a flip side to a certain extent in many ways of Donald Trump. He is somewhat anti-establishment. He would have cut off, at least he talked about it, cutting off the perpetual war machine, and the Democrats and Republicans unified, and they can't have that. They cannot have anyone cutting off the money train, baby. And really and truly, the election should have been between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. That would have been a legitimate election. Because you can't make any case that Joe Biden is a legitimate candidate. Yeah, he may end up being bestowed the throne, so to speak, and we may have to decide whether we're going to be subjects of the realm or citizens of the republic. That is what we ultimately have to decide. Because if we just let this stuff stand, and I'm not saying that we need to get violent in the street. That's not what I'm saying. But if we just go pack our toys up and go home and be bitter, then we are giving in to them, and we will become subjects of the realm whether we want to or not, and not rugged individualists. The only way for us to be citizens of the republic is to take the good with the bad, stand up, and continue to fight. I promise you, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to keep fighting. I'll be in the nursing home going, hell no, I ain't giving up. I ain't getting back in the pot. I'm not jumping back in that frog pot, man. But Mattis resigned. It said, Mattis said the U.S. needed to do more to show respect to American allies. Yeah, right. Perpetual war. Because they want the money too, I guess. I don't know what the heck he's talking about. In October 2018, then Secretary Mattis gave a speech in which he said that when we talk about America first, it's not America alone. Sounds reasonable. In his new article, however, Mattis said that the opposite, calling for an end of America first. You want to say, now I'm going to show you a picture in reference to Mattis. I don't like showing that. But that's what he is. He's a swamp rat. He is a swamp rat, and he is all about leading from behind as long as the money flows. Don't care where the soldiers go, as long as the money keeps going. Don't care how many people it takes to defend. I mean, think about it. What in Afghanistan is worth one drop of American blood right now? I can't think of anything. Please tell me, besides defending the guy next to you, what thing in Afghanistan is worth an American blood? And let me ask you this. If we get out tomorrow or 10 years from now, do you really think there's going to be a hill of beans difference other than our casualty list? I mean, it just pisses me off. But Mattis is a swamp rat. And the Pentagon is the deepest part of the cesspool, to be honest with you. And that's not denigrating our troops, because I've told you this before and I'll say it again. Our troops never, ever die in vain. Never die in vain, because they follow orders and they go where they're sent. Now, our leaders quite often put them in terrible situations that we have no reason to be in. But our soldiers, there's never been an American soldier died in vain, because he died doing his duty and fighting for the guy next to him. So I don't ever want to hear that. But Mattis said the United States today is undermining the foundations of an international order. That's all that matters, right? The international order. The war machine, manifestly advantage to U.S. interest, reflecting a basic ignorance of the extent to which both robust alliances and international institutions provide vital strategic depth. Translation, you know what that translation of what he just said, that long convoluted paragraph? America needs to open up its checkbook. We need to write some checks to people. We need to pay for the war machine to continue. That's what he's saying. In practice, America first has meant, these are Mattis's words, America first has meant America alone. That has damaged the country's ability to address problems before they reach U.S. territory, and has thus compounded the danger of emergent threats pose. That is total 100% BS, sir, and you know it. And you played a role in it, I give you credit. But under Donald Trump's leadership, we have not expanded our war. We bringing people home. We have peace in the Middle East for the first time in generations, new agreements, isolated Iran, wiped out ISIS, and our boys are coming home under Donald Trump. I mean, wow, I could just go on and on. I don't know how much more time I got. Pretty much out of time. I want to read a couple more things, and then we're gonna call it a day. He said the best right here. He says, in January, President Joe Biden and his national security team began to reevaluate U.S. foreign policy. We hope that they will quickly revise the national security strategy to eliminate, this is what Mattis said, eliminate America first from its content, restoring in its place the commitment to cooperative security that has served the United States so well for decades. What he's essentially saying is, hey, we need a war, man, because I need a job. And I don't relish any of that, man. And I was going to play another video, but I want to cut to the end of this because we're about out of time. In June, Mattis gave a statement to The Atlantic, which is a pure liberal progressive rag, in which he called Trump a threat to the Constitution, comparing him to a Nazi. Mattis, a shame, man, Nazi, and repeating false claims that Trump had used the military to clear protesters from Lafayette Square. He's calling the president a Nazi? Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if I had any respect for Mattis at all, it has just evaporated. Because when you play the Nazi card, you got nothing else. There goes whatever. It's just sad. It makes me sad, and it makes me mad. And the question is, ladies and gentlemen, are we going to just sit back, the patriots, whether it's 79%, 100%, whatever, Trump supporters, are we just going to pack our toys and go home? Are we going to stand up? Are we going to be subjects of the... Here's the question that I want you to ponder over the next few days. Are we going to be subjects of the realm? God help us if Joe Biden wins. Are we going to be citizens of a republic? Because we got a choice, as Benjamin Franklin said, a republic if you can keep it. And if you think it's up to the Bidens of the world and people who blanketly put him in there, God help us, then we're done. It is up to a few of us. And I'm in the fight for the long term. How about you? Check out our sponsor. As I say, not all of us can be in the fight, but all of us can be fighters. We got to sponsor those that are in the fight. Check out our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, at the top above the video, wherever you're looking at. You'll see a link to it. Hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Facebook page, like it, share it with others. YouTube, very important, spell it out. We're going to be on every social media thing you can possibly imagine. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great United States of America and our president. They both have earned that and deserve our prayers. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.